Okay, hello everyone and welcome. Today we will be presenting our welcome speeches. First on the agenda, a presentation by myself. I'm Elisabetta De Matteis, an oncologist at Local Health Authority of Lecce. It was a pleasure for me to organize this Congress with with a colleague of mine, Tiziana Grassi, associate professor at the University of Salento, and Francesco Bagordo, researcher at the University of Bari. And this is the International Conference on Cancer Screening and Management in the Transgender Population. The transgender and gender diverse population in the United States is estimated to be around 1.4 million, constituting 0.6% of the United States adult population. There exists no census data to back this estimate, and maybe higher in the younger population. In Italy, 71% of transgender have never participated in any cancer screening program. And as we know, the cancer screening has led to a decrease in cancer mortality. Many organizations, including American Cancer Society and United States Preventive Services Task Force and numerous professional organizations, have clear recommendations for the early detection of cancer in cisgender individuals. However, the transgender population currently has few cancer screening recommendations specific to this population. In addition to screening, few studies have commented on gender-affirming surgery and its impact on cancer screening, management, and surveillance in this population. A discussion with the patient regarding the oncologic risk of remaining organs is imperative prior GAS. Of note, this Congress aims to review current practice patterns with regard to cancer screening in transgender population and explores the barriers to and facilitators for HPV vaccination among adult transgender and gender diverse people. And now it's a pleasure for me to present you other welcome speeches. The first, Dr. Donato De Giorgi, our president. Let's give to the floor.
Buongiorno a tutte. Io sono qui per portare la testimonianza dell'ordine professionale dei medici chirurghi e odontoiatri della provincia di Lecce. Testimonianza che vuole rappresentare la vicinanza ad un problema particolarmente specifico, particolarmente interessante nelle varie modalità con le quali si svolgerà l'evento di oggi. Sono infatti tante le prospettive che questa visione diversa del management e dello screening del tumore, del carcinoma, determinano in tanti gruppi di popolazione ed in particolare aver messo al centro l'osservazione della popolazione transgender vuol dire avere un grande interesse, avere una grande sensibilità nel non considerare tali individui come altri, come diversi, come non normali, ma invece partecipare alle problematiche che a volte sono molto complesse, già dalla preparazione all'essere transgender, quindi con tutte le terapie ormonali che vengono molto spesso somministrate, e poi nel prosieguo, quando si confonde la presenza di alcuni organi e quando naturalmente l'attenzione del medico viene rivolta altrove. Allora è evidente che sottolineare questo aspetto vuol dire oggi, per i medici della provincia di Lecce che accolgono con grande entusiasmo questo evento internazionale, con un parterre assolutamente prestigioso, vuol dire essere attenti a tutti i particolari, perché in base all'articolo 2 della Costituzione italiana, in base all'articolo 32 della Costituzione italiana e in base alle leggi che noi ci siamo date, al nostro codice deontologico, tutti devono avere uguale diritto, ed è un diritto fondamentale, alla salute. E diritto alla salute vuol dire che deve essere guardato soprattutto le differenze che caratterizzano ognuno dei cittadini. Io non faccio altro che ringraziarvi ancora e augurarvi un buon lavoro, perché certamente questo è un evento del tutto particolare. Grazie ancora, buonasera.
Okay, thank you, President. And now it's a pleasure for me to welcome Professor Maurice Garcia. Will honor us with a contribution. He is, I read, he is a clinical professor of urology surgery and the chief of benign urology in the Department of Urology at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. He is the director of the Cedars-Sinai Transgender Surgery and Health Program and the fellowship director for the Cedars-Sinai Genital Reconstructive and Gender Affirming Surgery and Sexual Medicine Training Program. Professor Garcia specializes in genital reconstructive surgery, including gender-affirming, masculinizing, and feminizing genital surgery, neurourology, and sexual medicine. Thank you, Professor. Audio. One moment.
È chiuso l'audio, lui ha l'audio chiuso.
Can you open your audio? Can you open your microphone? Yes.
Sì. Okay. I kept it off for the president, sorry. Dr. Matei, it's a great honor to be here. I really appreciate the invitation, and it's an honor for me. So I hope my comments will be helpful, and I'm very excited that your program is hosting this nice event. Let me start. Let me first share my screen. There we go. Okay. And I shared a different PowerPoint, a much longer one, PDF, for you to share with your colleagues in case they're interested. It has, many more slides than I have time to show now. But can you see my slides?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just gonna. I have a little less than 20 minutes, so I'm gonna go very quickly. But and I will speak slowly because my Italian is not as good as your English. Gender identity, as you all know, is nothing we can see or measure or weigh. It's just something that we express, that we feel. In fact, as this little cartoon adolescents is about 1.2%, even higher. You know, people can argue as to whether it's a fashion or people, you know, it's popular now. Probably not. Being transgender is not easy anywhere in the world. But these are the numbers that we have. In every country where there's data, if you Google, you know, transgender by country, there's now so many lists of people for different countries. So and all the numbers appear to be somewhat similar. The problem with being transgender for countries and health systems is that it is associated with a depression rate and a much higher depression rate and a suicide rate that's 3 to 5 times higher than the general population. And people suffer from a lot of anxiety, they don't work, they're on medical disability, paid for by the state. They hurt themselves and they engage in destructive behaviors. Certainly not all transgender people, we don't want to pathologize this, but it is something that we see from an epidemiologic standpoint. You know, as everyone knows that in Scandinavia, they do a very good job of keeping track of people. Everyone has a personal number, and they know all about your health history and everything. So data from Scandinavia is very reliable, and from Denmark, 0.54% of the Danish population self-identifies as transgender or non-binary. Interesting, in Denmark, it's you know, 4 to 1 non-binary to transgender. So more people are non-binary, and I think that that's what we're going to start to see more of in different countries. It's actually more people are non-binary than actually transgender, but it's all part of the same spectrum of gender diversity. And you know, the numbers of people that this represents is enormous. In Denmark, it's, you know, 0.54% of the population is 31,000, etc. In the UK, where transgender care has been offered for a couple of decades, the percentage is 0.55%, which is right exactly around where it is in the United States. Italy, I don't know, I couldn't understand in Italian the number, because of the microphone, the number of transgender people. I don't know if that's known in Italy, but if you take, you know, just a general average of the percentages from other countries and apply it to the Italian population, the numbers of people are very high. If you know, the population of Italy in 2023 was 58,870,762. So if you take the low and the high of the percent from other countries, so 0.4% to 0.7%. Sorry, this is a typo. It should be 0.7% of the population. It's 235,483 to 400,012 transgender people in the country. So that's a lot of people. I don't think it's something that can easily be neglected. So let's shift gears. This is some research that I did here in the States. I asked my patients who I see for surgery, at what age did you first know you were transgender? Maybe you didn't know the word transgender, you didn't know what gender dysphoria is, just that you knew that your body on the outside did not match your body on the inside. And you know, what I found was that 70% of people say between ages 3 and 7. So, and why is that? If you ask a cognitive psychologist, they'll tell you that gender becomes a permanent construct in our heads at about age 2 to 3. So it's not surprising that a lot of people start feeling anxiety and start knowing that their body doesn't match their insides by as early as age 3. So it's not a surprise. And you know, we tend to think of transgender as something from adults because we associate it, I think, incorrectly with sex and sexuality. It has nothing to do with sex or sexuality. So it's really a condition of childhood as much as it is adulthood. And I think we have to remember that from an epidemiologic, social health standpoint. We all know that, you know, childhood is very, very, very important for formation of habits, of identity, of, you know, it basically, you know, as I forget the author, but they said the child is father to the man. You know, everything happens in childhood. So let's switch gears. I don't know, unfortunately, this audience, I was invited to this very recently, but I'm hoping that you are familiar with WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. It was actually started in the 1930s, and in the 1970s it changed names, but it's an organization that is the only organization that is dedicated to transgender health. It is interdisciplinary. There's mental health people, surgeons, psychologists, epidemiologists, sexual medicine people, primary care, everyone, it's a big tent, and everyone is in this organization. And we write, what's that? Oh, okay. WPATH writes standards of care. They're just guidelines, they're not laws or anything, but, you know, basically suggestions for how to care for transgender people. And you can find these in Italian at this website in about 13 or 14 languages. I suggest, you know, if you're interested in caring for this population or working with them, that it's useful to look at them. And I'm part of the organization. I sit on the ethics committee and the surgery committee, and I've contributed, I'm one of the co-authors of the guidelines, but there's many of us, not just me, of course. But it's a very nice, thoughtful, it's written in lay language, so easily accessible language. And in the United States, these guidelines, the U.S. government adheres to these guidelines. So the U.S. government says, yes, these are just guidelines, but we acknowledge them and we make them law. So, you know, this is what our health insurance companies, they require anything that is said in the guidelines. I hope you understand what I mean. So the guidelines almost take an official nature based on our government. And I think it may be for other governments around the world too, that don't know any better and they say, well, we'll just require whatever the guidelines say. So that's how it works here. So gender dysphoria is what we treat. It's the anxiety, it's the depression, the disabling anxiety and depression that some, not all, transgender people experience from the fact that their body is just not right for their gender on the inside. So gender dysphoria can be treated with 3 pillars of treatment: therapy, cognitive therapy, hormone therapy, and surgery. Notice that I write plus minus. Not everyone needs all of these. Most people get some sort of, you know, counseling from a psychologist or a psychiatrist at some point in their lives. Honestly, like all of us, everyone has seen a psychologist or a psychologist at some point, at least in the United States. And most people use hormones, but not everyone, and probably the fewest is surgery. Not all transgender and gender non-binary people require all of them. And the focus is very individualized. It's based on the individual. There's no standard treatment. I'm not going to go through this slide, but there are protocols for hormone therapy. The people that provide hormone, you know, gender-affirming hormone therapy in the United States are primary care doctors or endocrinologists or family therapy doctors, different people. This is a field, transgender health is a field that does not belong to any one specialty, unlike everything else in medicine. So, you know, this is in my slides that I've shared with Dr. DiMattei. You're welcome to just look at them. These are the surgeries that we offer, feminizing surgeries. So from the top down, facial feminization, vocal cord surgery, breast augmentation, body contouring, and then genital surgery. Of all of these, most people, if they're going to get any surgery, they often want the genital surgery most. But not everyone. Some people are more dysphoric about their face or their voice. Everyone's a little bit different, but I'd say most are genital. And for masculinizing treatment, there's really just genital surgery and mastectomy. When boys, transgender young men, go through puberty, they don't want to grow breasts. That's the first thing that's something that everyone can see through the clothing. So they'll get that very early, and then later, maybe genital surgery. The guidelines that we adhere to in the United States say in order to be eligible for genital surgery, someone has to have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria by 2 mental health professionals. The mental health people are the gatekeepers for transgender healthcare, for surgery at least. They need to have socially transitioned at least a year approximately, but these are flexible. So living full-time in whatever their gender is, and then at least about a year of hormone therapy. And they need, in order for the government or any insurance company to pay for surgery, it is required of them that they have 2 letters from 2 different mental health professionals. So 2 letters, each from 1 different mental health professional, saying that they have gender dysphoria, that they have reasonable expectations about treatment, that any mental health conditions or medical conditions are well controlled. It's pretty simple. I know this meeting is about cancer screening. I can't, I wrote a whole paper on this paper here. And I have these tables in the paper. They're in your slide set. You can look at it sort of offline, but in general, there's no data yet that shows an increased cancer risk among transgender people, specifically cancer. There is data, a lot of data, to support higher cardiovascular disease mortality. That's the #1 killer of everyone everywhere. But for transgender people, it's even higher than their age-matched, people of the opposite sex. And we've always attributed it to cross-sex hormones, to the gender-affirming hormones. But we don't quite understand that entirely. I'm doing research in this area, but we don't understand it yet, but it's true. They die more of cardiovascular disease. I like to point out that hormone therapy appears to be protective for some cancers. Prostate cancer, for example, it's very rare, not 0 rate, but it's very uncommon to see prostate cancer in transgender women. And it appears to depend on when they started taking feminizing hormones. If they start taking feminizing hormones in their 50s, it's unlikely that one's going to see a lower prostate cancer rate. People often have prostate cancer then. But if they start taking it like people do today, early in life, I think the prostate cancer risk, that's why we see it so low. And I think it's going to be even lower in the future. Also, remember, if many trans women and trans men get their breasts removed, get their uterus removed, their ovaries, their testicles, their risk of the cancers from those things goes down. I'm not saying or suggesting that we should ignore cancer. I absolutely not. I advocate for continuing to screen based on the normal guidelines for people. But I'm just pointing out that gender transition has funny effects on risks, different medical conditions. I think it's important to counsel patients, though, that they need to be screened for the same cancers that they would have for the rest of their lives until we have better data. Unless, of course, they've had their uterus removed. I don't think they need uterine cancer screening, but, trans women all keep their prostates. and even if you have your breast removed, as many as you all know, some breast tissue can be left behind. So I think a very important predictor for cancer screening should be also family history. If you have a strong family history for some cancers, those people should be screened very carefully, period, until we know better. Let me share with you, I promised Elisabetta I would share some, just a flavor of what transgender healthcare is like at my institution. I'm almost done here. The patients I see are adolescents from 9 to 17, not for surgery, they don't get surgery, but for counseling and hormone therapy, and then adults ages 18 to 89. The oldest adult I've had was for surgery was 84. We see men, women, non-binary, the whole spectrum. Sexuality, the whole spectrum. About a third of my patients are heterosexual based on their identified with sex. A third are homosexual, and a third are bisexual. A nationality, forget it. Everywhere in the world, people come for care. The U.S., every state, North and South America, Europe, Asia, etc. And then, just for interest, professions, I see people that are wealthy, poor, educated, uneducated, movie stars, not famous TV people, doctors, lawyers, Democrats, Republicans, you name it, you see it. It's a slice of life. And our program at Cedars-Sinai offers basically everything. If you're thinking about building a program, we offer surgery of all types, transgender primary care, transgender hormone therapy management, transgender gynecologic and urologic care, of course, specialized, for transgender people as well. Mental health care, we at our institution only offer this, we don't really offer it. Sadly, mental health care is not very profitable, and a lot of centers, academic centers, don't provide it in their clinics. But there's a lot of people in the community that provide this, and we interface with them. So I think if you're building a program, you will have to interface with providers all over Italy, people that work, in the public hospitals, people that work in private, they write letters. You just have to make it work and connect and communicate. Endocrinology, dermatology, voice therapy, blah, blah, blah. Everything, pediatric care. And I think I'm the director of our program, and I would say the pillars of our program are research, clinical care first, but research, education, and then academic scholarship, publications, writing guidelines, stuff like that. And then, of course, interinstitutional collaboration. This is just a picture of our folletto, our little booklet that has all the stuff that we do. I think it's important if a center is going to offer care to write down somewhere what you offer, because these patients all communicate through social media. They have to protect themselves because there's a lot of abuse and a lot of neglect. So they communicate, and you want to provide something that has, all of your information on it as a program. So we have this. And then we also have the names of the different surgeons and doctors and whatever that provide these services. So one wants to provide granularity so that when you look at the program folletto, you see not only services, but who to talk to. And then they can find you on the internet and make an appointment. So let's switch gears very quickly. A quick question. Why do you think, I already said that I didn't say actually, the U.S. government covers all of these services. They made it law that in many states, if you're under 65, many states, not all, the state has to provide transgender health care if the person can't afford private insurance. And over 65, in the whole country of the United States, the federal government will cover surgery, hormones, everything. Why? Is it because the government is very emotional and sensitive? No, because treatment of gender dysphoria improves quality of life, and improved quality of life decreases cost to our healthcare system. And in Italy, like in the United States, the government pays for a lot of healthcare. So it's financial. It makes financial sense to take better care of a population that can be very expensive to take care of if they're not doing well. That's the main reason. There's a lot of myths about transgender patients, that they're very difficult, that they're unstable. You know, I don't find this at all. The secret is simply respectful care. If you treat people respectfully and showing concern, you know, they're quite easy to get along with. That they're strange or different, as I've already said, they come from all walks of life. There's no difference, no more than any of our other patients. So the last thing I'll talk about quickly is starting a transgender healthcare program. Just a few points. I've started two, the one at UCSF in San Francisco and then Cedars-Sinai, and these are some lessons that I've learned. The number one most common and also the worst thing that can happen to a transgender patient when they come to a medical center is to be misgendered. For the transgender woman to be addressed as sir or Mr., and the same for the transgender man to be addressed as miss. It's very, very offensive, and it feels weird, as if I called any of you men and women the opposite sex. It sounds like you sound crazy when you do that. And they feel very unseen. And it's very easy to do this. They have deep voices maybe, or they have, you know, it's very easy to be misled. The name on the chart may be their legal name, which hasn't been changed legally, so it sounds like a man, but instead they identify as a woman, etc. I asked one of my transgender patients, the guy with the beard, you know, how does being misgendered make you feel? And people all say the same thing. Any or all of these things: invalidated, rejected, very hurt and offended. Patients find it makes them feel humiliated to be called a Mr. when you identify as a woman, angry, hopeless, unwelcome, and unsafe. So these are all things to remember. Everyone asks about pronouns and names. I think my recommendation, what I tell everyone at Cedars, at my institution, is don't use pronouns. Don't say señor or señora. It's just whatever their name is. If it's, you know, Umberto, it's Umberto. And if it's, you know, Giovanna, it's Giovanna. You don't have to say, the easiest thing is to ask, what is your preferred name? And then to explain to them that you know what's going on. Say, what pronouns do you prefer? And that's it. Two questions that are very simple to write on a form, to ask people. It keeps you out of trouble. And most importantly, it tells that person that you know what's going on, and that you care about not offending them or hurting their feelings. And that's it. I'm going to go fast here. How does transgender healthcare enrich the healthcare environment? These are important points. The last thing I'm going to share with you. Having a transgender healthcare program calls on the skills associated with being a good doctor. If someone asks you, what is a good doctor? It's someone who's compassionate, who advocates for patients, who knows the science, and who's innovative. And that having a program with people that do this for transgender people brings out the best in doctors, and it brings out the best doctors. It also reminds us of these 2 points, which is that we don't know what we don't know. That's true. We don't know what we don't know. But we can apply this to anything in medicine. We don't know what we don't know about our patients' sexuality, about their sexual function and practices. So we can't make assumptions. That's the big lesson. We have to ask patients and know them a little bit. And if we don't have time to ask them and know them, we give them as much information as we can, and then we say, what do you think of all the treatment options that I've shared with you? What will serve you the best? And leave it at that. And then we have to also remember that patients don't know what they don't know about surgery, about the medications you're going to give, X, Y, or Z. They don't know what they don't know, and we have to remember that. So, and explain it to them, and not assume that they know. So in this way, it makes us better doctors. This is a very busy slide, but I looked at the sex of the partners of my patients based on what surgery they chose. Some patients, women for example, on the left will choose vaginoplasty with a vaginal canal or without. And those that choose with a vaginal canal, their partners are men, so they need a vaginal canal for sex. Those that don't have those that chose no canal tend to have, most of them are bisexual most of them, their sexual interests are women. I said already 1/3 are homosexual and heterosexual and bi. So you start to see people figure out what serves them best and they choose that option. So we have to just give all of the options. And then transgender surgery brings innovations that can help non-transgender patients. So if there is any surgeons in this audience, remember, if you learn how to do intestinal vaginoplasty or phalloplasty for men, you know, for transgender men, you can apply these same surgeries for people that are victims of non-transgender problems like trauma or cancer or congenital conditions like epispadias or, you know, androgen insensitivity syndrome, whatever. And then lastly, having a transgender healthcare program channels, it tells the world that that institution is committed to diversity, not just transgender people, but diversity in general. And it makes other minority groups feel more welcome to that institution. And lastly, listen, this is the real world. It also makes a lot of money. You know, my institution, I don't make all the money, and my institution makes a lot of money from these services, because the more, we all know, the more uncommon a service is, the more people charge for it. And hospitals, many do that. So it's very profitable. This is my last slide. Why do I do this? You know, the truth is 90 to 95% of my practice is transgender. I offer everything: masculinizing surgery, feminizing surgery. And people, I do it because patients are extremely grateful. And you know, that's why I went into medicine, to help people. And taking care of people that can't thank you and can never thank you enough feels very nice. You know, it's somewhat selfish, but it's nice to feel nice. And you know, to have a fulfilling, meaningful job. The surgeries to me are extremely interesting and complex, and I find that fascinating. There's lots of, if you like research, there's tons of research opportunities and also teaching opportunities. I like to teach. That's why I'm in academic medicine. And there's also a very nice fraternity with other providers from other disciplines. I meet psychiatrists, medical people, endocrinologists, people I normally don't meet as much in urology. I meet them in this field because we kind of connect a little bit at meetings and with the care of patients. And it's very fulfilling to serve the underserved. It feels nice to do good things in this world. And there's abundant professional opportunities. We all know if you do something that no one else does, you become more important or more sought after. So for those junior people in the audience, you know, if you don't have any problem doing this, you know, it's a very nice way to advance your career by being good at something that no one else is doing. Because, you know, there's not that many of us that do this. I'm not going to show or talk about the surgeries, but the feminizing and masculinizing surgeries are in the slide set that I provided. And with that, I want to say thank you. This is my email. Please email me if ever you want, or call me. Elisabetta will have my phone number and email, and I'd be glad to take any questions. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you for your time. It was an honor
Va bene.
to have you with us. Okay.
I can't hear you.
No?
No, ascolto.
We have,
Ah.
okay. You have your number phone, you have your email. Thank you. Unfortunately, we do not have any time for a question. But thank you. Very interesting, your contribution, really.
Thank you, and we can talk another time, and thank you for the invitation. I will say goodbye then.
Me too.
But please email or call.
Yes.
Ciao.
Thank you, Morris. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Then now it's a pleasure for me to introduce the chairman, Maria Rita De Giorgio, and Graziana Rozzino, biologist and oncologist at local health in Lecce, and Antonio Di Lorenzo. And now, thank you and enjoy the conference.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for the invitation and thank you to the organizer and all the people that are here this afternoon. Good afternoon to Dr. Ronzino and Dr. Di Lorenzo. I think a warm welcome also to Mattia Peradotto. I think we can introduce the first presentation. It's okay. We can go on with the session. The first talk was really, really interesting, but okay, we can start.
Okay, let's start with the presentation. Please, Maria Rita, introduce Dr. Peradotto.
Mattia Peradotto is Director General of the Office for the Promotion of Equal Treatment and the Removal of Discrimination on the Ground of Racial or Ethnic Origin within the Department of Equal Opportunities at the Italian Presidency of the Council of Ministers. So it's a special honor for us to have him here joining us. He's online, I can see him, so welcome. He's very welcome here, please.
Thank you very much. I hope you all hear me quite well.
Yes, we can hear him.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm really, really sorry not being with you, but I'm really pleased to provide you this small actually introduction of the work of the Italian equality body, that is the National Office Against Racial Discrimination. That is the body in Italy that safeguards actually the equal treatment in the country, besides every characteristics of the people in general. So on the protected grounds, not only as the name could actually suggest, of ethnic background and race, but also on the ground of sexual orientation and gender identity. This is why I'm here with you today. Religion and personal conviction, disability and age. So we are the body that safeguards for the country the equal treatment in all the different sectors, so we can say, for these protected grounds. And I'm really honored and happy to give you a small presentation of the office and a welcome, and talking about a bit of our work specifically regarding and addressing the transgender population. In the work in the field of the protected ground of gender identity, we work a lot on the equal access of transgender people to health services in general, and also to their well-being and health in general, I would say. We are working deeply with the major Italian organization on the matter. Specifically, I wanted to share with you two major projects that we have with the National Institute for Health of Italy, ASS, the Istituto Superiore di Sanità in Italian, that we, with this institute, we cooperated in the last 3 years, more or less, on different projects regarding the transgender population. We deployed and published a portal that you all can find online. It's called Infotrans, and it's an informational portal for the transgender community, where you can find the most relevant, we can say, information regarding access to healthcare, regarding access to the affirming course and path for the transgender community, the glossary, the law, the law structure of the country regarding legal gender recognition. And on that basis, we also promoted with the Institute for National Health also two main researches regarding the transgender population that have been actually published last year, 2 last year and 2 this year. We have two main research on the health situation of the transgender population in general in Italy that involved actually the clinical center that are specialized on the treatment of transgender people. And we had this kind of big research with 1,000 people as a sample that were asked to actually deploy their socio-demographic data and their health data regarding their general state of health, their physical exercise, the dietary, their habits, and also their, we can say, adhesion to the oncological screenings that are undergoing in the country. 2 of them have been published. We have the first study that have been published on May 11 on the Journal of Endocrinological Investigation, and the study is called Socio-Demographic Profile, Health-Related Behaviors and Experiences of Healthcare Access in Italian Transgender and Gender Diverse Adult Population. You can find it in the journal and online, and I will provide also to Ms. De Matteis also the references, so you can all see the research and the study we published. And the second one published on the nutrients in 2024 as well, and it's a study that is called Habits, Physical Activity and Body Mass Index in Transgender and Gender Diverse Adults in Italy. And these are actually the first sample of research that were specifically made on the adult transgender population in the country, and they are 2 researches that have been deployed by the National Institution of Health, the National Institute of Health, at the end of this huge project of work on the specific equal access to healthcare for the transgender population. We had also the set of 2 main training courses that have been actually published as well, and these kind of studies of the on the training of.
Sorry to interrupt, but we cannot see the screen if you are sharing.
I'm not sharing a presentation actually.
Okay.
No worries. But I will provide like the references of the studies. And one of the first study on the training for doctors regarding specifically the transgender population is examining the training needs and perspective of Italian general practitioner on transgender and gender diverse healthcare. So it's an insight from a national survey that was the one we undertaken with the National Institute of Health and was published on the International Journal of Transgender Health in 2024 as well. And the last one is instead an evaluation of the impact of distant learning on gender-affirming healthcare competences, knowledge acquisition and satisfaction among healthcare professionals in Italy as well, and was published on Front Public Health in 2024. So we'll provide definitely Ms. De Matteis the information for the 4 studies, and also 2 of the studies actually are still available for doctors who want to actually go in depth in this kind of matter and training, and they are provided by the Istituto Superiore di Sanità, so the National Institute of Health of Italy. This is more or less what we are doing, what we've done as a quality body in the country. Now we are in the process of the new deploy of the new plan for inclusion 2021-2027 for the inclusion also of the transgender population. So we will have soon, I would say, new projects with the National Institute of Health regarding specifically the transgender population, and we were thinking of maybe trying to provide a more, how can I say, a more wider view of the problem of the screening in the transgender population. So I'm really looking forward also to continue following the event and the conference and to understand what is actually right now also in Italy the state of play of the transgender population health, specifically regarding the cancer system and the screening system in its whole. And I will be very, very happy to share also the project we will undertake and the final results of your conference. So thank you very much for the invitation, and I wish you all a fruitful meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Peradotto. I don't know if there are questions from the audience. I have a question. I don't know if Dr. Ronzino, maybe she has a question, but I will go first. Because Dr. Garcia, in the previous talk, he tried to give an idea of an estimation of the transgender population in US, in Europe, and in Italy. I know it is difficult because estimations are difficult, but you can give us an average estimation of the transgender population in Italy. It is possible to have it?
Well, as you all know, we don't have on this kind of matter, as on many others, on equality data. We don't have data that have a breakdown on this specific matter because are protected on the GDPR, are protected by the GDPR law. So we can't do actually specific surveys on a national perspective and with the National Institution of Statistics regarding this specific population. So we just have survey of self-assessment, of course, as you all know. So we have the FRA survey, the Fundamental Rights Agency survey that usually works on an European perspective and landscape, and we do have, of course, also our specific self-assessment surveys that were related to the study. And actually, yeah, with the National Institute of Health, we tried to have a span of range, and we are not very far of what Dr. Garcia said. So usually the span that is taken into account by the National Health Institute of Italy, it's 0.7, 1.2. So yeah, more or less is all the same. But as I said, these equality data are really difficult to analyze in a specific matter, because we can't do statistical relevant samples for that.
Okay, let me ask only briefly if you are thinking about a register phasing on data transition, because this should be very, very interesting and very useful for clinical practice, and also to design a screening for this specific population. It should be an issue for National Health Service. What do you think about?
Thank you for the question. It's really interesting. I mean, I don't have an answer for that ready-made, but still, it's something we are definitely thinking about. Not the register in itself, but how we can, in a effective and efficient way, be sure that we actually take into account the screening of the people that are actually transitioning. As I was saying, this is not an easy answer, because we have to understand that we are dealing with a minority population, and a population that can have also, as other minorities, I don't know how to say, but a threat in the tracking. So everything that could track down and being very specific on the registration of some characteristic of a population is something risky. On a general point of view, but also on a specific point of view. So we have to understand somehow how we can deal with the assurance of having a ground protected by law and by the privacy law in itself, but also anonymizing data and dealing with anonymized data, but also being able to take care and take into account the screening processes that we have to register and that we don't have to miss. We are definitely thinking of trying to understand something as a pilot project on that, maybe also with the Ministry of Health, but it's something really we didn't finalize at this stage. So it's interesting, and it's going to be interesting also to have your views on that, but we don't have like a final answer on that.
Thank you very much. There are any more questions from the audience? Or we can go on with the program. Elisabetta, do you want to introduce our general? No, okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And we move to the second presentation. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Paola Mantellini, who is one of the most expert in Italy of cancer screening.
I don't know if it's my problem, but I don't hear you. I can't hear you, actually.
Sorry.
Giustamente sì. No, perché l'audio non è attivo. Sì.
Okay.
Okay? Can you hear us? and move to the second presentation. It's very great pleasure to introduce Dr. Paola Mantellini, one of the most Italian experts in cancer screening, and it's my personal pleasure to introduce her, who is the chief in secondary prevention and screening department in Florence, and a referent for the regional center in oncology prevention in Florence. So Paola, let us know.
Good afternoon, everybody. May you hear me?
Yeah, we
Okay,
can
perfect.
hear you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank Dr. Mattheis for inviting me. It's a really good pleasure for me to be here with you. Well, I'll share my screen and tell me if you can see my presentation, because now I don't see you anymore. May you see it?
Try again, please. We
Okay.
can share.
Non si sente, bisogna attivare. Siamo senza audio. Scusate.
May you see my presentation?
Yeah, now we can, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I try to the entire screen. Okay. How is it now? Is okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Well, this is my agenda. Just a little background. I will speak about Italian and European data, and also about European planning for cancer screening, as well as the joint action and EU count screen. So, what about the background? In 2020, it has been estimated that about 2.7 million people were diagnosed for cancer, and that another 1.3 million people died for cancer. The estimate also shows that without any robust and consistent action, we expect to have an increase of more than 24% of death for cancer by 2035. And then just some data regarding the Italian situation. Here, the examination coverage for breast, colorectal, and cervical cancer screening. The examination coverage is the proportion of population that undergoes a screening test in the final period that is usually here, in comparison to those that are eligible for the intervention. As you can see, here we have the examination coverage for breast, colorectal, and cervical cancer screening. The average value in 2022, I will focus on in 2022, is 43 for breast, 27 for colorectal, and 41 for cervical cancer. And I think that we have to improve this performance, in particular regarding colorectal cancer screening. But I think that I want to focus, to stress, is the huge variability among northern regions in comparison to southern one for all the three campaigns. And I think that we have to improve, in particular, in southern regions. Here, the invitation coverage and the participation rate for the same free cancer screening in 2023. And what I can say is that regarding invitation coverage, the blue bars, we have very good performances regarding breast cancer screening in northern and the central regions for breast cancer screening, for cervical screening, and also for colorectal screening. We have also good performances in invitation coverage for southern regions regarding cervical cancer screening, while the performances count that the European commitment is that by 2025 we have to guarantee screening to at least 90% of eligible European citizens. You can say that we are making, in Italy, we are making a relevant effort to achieve this goal. And in particular, I want to focus on the fact that regarding screening, breast cancer screening, we have an increase regarding indication coverage of 7 percentage points in 23 in comparison to 2022, of over than 20 percentage points in cervical cancer screening in 2023 in comparison to the previous year, and of 17 percentage points for colorectal cancer screening in comparison to 2022. So, in order to maintain the purpose, to achieve the goal, it's essential that the northwest and central regions do not fall behind, but also that the other regions advance further. I'm sorry, I have to share this DNA with the primary effect, please. So, what about screening in Europe? We still have so recent data. I will just remember you this publication is counted by the International Agency for Reduction of Cancer that report some information and monitoring of screening data regarding 2016. As you can see in this slide, there is a very common feature that describes the distribution of colorectal cancer screening programs in the European Union in 2016. And as you can see, there was a very variability among regions, and only few ones with a complete rollout of the program. And some others with no program at all. The same situation in 2006 has been observed regarding cervical cancer screening, even if there is a more homogeneous trend regarding the Nordic European countries.
Dipende da quanti,
cancer virus. And it
dipende da quanti
applies
lo fanno però,
to
no?
mitigate the impact of COVID-19
Che dal
pandemic and
90
cancer
al
care,
2024
cancer care
sono già quasi in una
pharmaceuticals also
popolazione
works
che
and
rientra
support
nello screening,
structural
no? Quanti
improvement
anni
of
c'hanno dal
multi-level
1990 al
manufacturing
2024?
Solo
and
che il problema adesso è che hanno tutti paura dei
the
vaccini.
plan
Le persone
was
sono diventate
implemented
matte
to
con questa storia
provide
dei
Però a noi non
vaccini.
interessano le bambine adesso, i bambini, a noi ci interessano quelli che l'hanno fatto e che si ammalano in 2000 che sono quelli che vediamo noi, vaccinati. Quindi lo screening per quelli
Tu dici c'è quell'impatto lì.
oppure quelli vaccinati che verranno non faranno lo screening, sapendo di essere vaccinati, poi si presenteranno. Capito? Questa è la mia domanda.
And the scheme focus on main improvement or main improvement in reaching areas that are access. How? Updating the council's recommendation according to the latest available scientific evidence on quality, providing new guidelines and new guidelines and quality assurance scheme on cancer screening, diagnosis, identification, follow-up, and timely care for colorectal, cervical cancer, and also updating guidelines and quality assurance scheme
Per
for
lei
breast
nello
cancer
specifico
screening.
no.
And also, if you want to improve diagnosis, that means to enhance diagnosis,
Ero concentrato sui donatori, che sono
and also promoting new methods to improve the quality of cancer screening program using artificial intelligence. And the Europe Beating Cancer Plan provided an implementation roadmap around 5 years and wants to put research, innovation, and new technologies at the service of cancer prevention care as well as to support cancer prevention care through cancer research and innovative ecosystem. I think that one of the most challenging questions is that the roadmap wants to assure cancer patients to securely accessing and sharing their electronic health records with healthcare providers through all Europe through the EU infrastructure of European health database. So a very great improvement thanks to technology is expected. And regarding the improvement of early detection of cancer, the roadmap stated that in 2022, the European Council had to propose new cancer screening recommendation and also stated to launch in accordingly to the European Council recommendation, a new joint action on cancer screening implementation. And now the future, I will speak to you about the recommendation and the joint action. And what about, I have no time to explain you how the recommendations were built, but I'll give you just a little info about the three main recommendations that are to ensure that existing screening programs from breast, colorectal, and cervical cancer are coordinated within the whole pathway of cancer management and are centered on the citizen. The second one aim at a scanning population screening program to cancer for which scientific evidence demonstrates a good harm-benefit ratio, cost efficiency, advantages of early detection and feasibility throughout the European country, while regularly reviewing scientific evidence. And the third one aims at taking advantage of the developing technological possibility and scientific knowledge to optimize early diagnosis and to dealt with the risk-based cancer screening approach. And in building the joint action on You Can Screen, the European Commission take into account many contexts and challenges. In fact, we know that the existing cancer screening programs are at different implementation stages within the European member states. And also we know that the new screening programs proposed for implementation differ in their stages of technological maturity, and the relevant guidelines are not yet to be developed. Here we refer to lung, prostate, and gastric cancer. Also, we know that a personalized approach to screening is at the initial implementation stage. We go further with the cervical cancer screening, but we are regarding breast and colorectal, we are at the very beginning. And we know that it's very important to focus on acquisition and treatment of personal data, and personalization of screening must be ethically justified and legalized. So we have to work a lot on LC evaluation. Furthermore, governance models are completely different from among the various member states. And we know that sometimes they are not based on recommended principles. Also regarding information technology, we know that information platforms for capturing data and screening performance are at different levels of development, and that sometimes it's not possible to monitor the quality indicators. We also know that quality assurance of various programs differs, and not always they are compliant with the European guidelines. We know also that training and screening procedures are not so well defined and not so uniform across the member states. And even if we know that it's an important decision-made tool, cost-effective modeling is commonly overlooked. And at the end, we know that there is a great difference among member states regarding participation rates, and that often quality indicators are below the expected standard. So, taking into account all these challenges, I speak to you about the joint action. What is a joint action? It's a collaborative action that aims at developing, sharing, refining, and testing tools, methods, and approaches to specific health issues, and engage in capacity building in the areas of interest. It is financed by the European Commission and by, usually, the Ministry of Health of each member state. Regarding a You Can Screen, that is the joint action on cancer screening implementation, I want to remember that the total budget is 38 million euros. It will last 4 years, and that 29 countries will participate. The overall goal of this joint action is to reduce the burden of cancer in Europe through effective and sustainable cancer screening programs, lowering inequalities. And the joint actions aim at ensuring full implementation of evidence-based, cost-effective, and quality-assured screening programs for breast, cervical, and colorectal cancer, as well as wants to prepare for implementation of evidence-based, cost-effective, and quality-assured screening programs for lung, prostate, and cancer. So we will move from 3 to 6 cancer screening programs. The aim of the joint action is also to assure proper program governance and sustainability, as well as better quality, timeline, and comparable data collection and monitoring of screening programs. And also aims at ensuring equal access, I think it's important for this meeting, equal access of eligible EU citizens, and wants to reduce cancer inequality, as well as addressing new approaches to screening, as personalized screening and new technologies, as the use of artificial intelligence and big data. There is a consortium that the joint action started on the 1st June of this year. There is a consortium, one coordinator from Latvia, 28 competent authorities, 59 affiliated entities, and 10 associated partners members. Regarding Italy, the competent authority, the ISPRO is in charge, from Tuscany region is in charge as competent authorities. We have 11 affiliated entities, some regions, some research centers, also the Ministry of Health, and 2 associated partners. I can't go in details regarding the EUCAN screen governance structure, but I just want to show in this picture how complex it is. And I want just to stress that there will be a scientific committee and a scientific management team that will be a governmental advisory board with all the members from the national authority, that means from the ministries of health of each member states, and that will be a stakeholder network. But I think it's really very important to share and also to co-create new approaches and to decide which will be the best pathway for cancer screening. And when we say stakeholder network, means that not only healthcare professionals will be involved, but also patient and citizen association and also industries. This joint action will work in synergies with a lot of past and ongoing joint action and projects. I just want to remember that the CAN screen edges that I have already mentioned will be extended and the piloting will be extended. But we also collaborate with SOLAS for lung cancer, PRAISE-U for prostate cancer, and TOGAS for casting cancer in order to improve synergies and reduce overlapping. And here the joint action, 11 work packages for horizontal and 7 technical. The 4 horizontal are mandatory, and the first one regards the coordination that I have already mentioned belongs to Latvia, and of course the aim is to assure successful EUCAN screening implementation. The second one regards dissemination of the EUCAN screen result findings and wants to inform the target audience and the stakeholder about the results of the EUCAN screen. And this will be done through a defined and shared dissemination and communication strategy, as well as it will be, one of the aims, it will be to define and reach the target audience and the stakeholders at the level of institution, of professional society, of policy makers, and the public. And I think that this presentation here is one of the opportunity to speak and to disseminate about EUCAN screening. The first one, perhaps, I don't know. VP3 is about the evaluation of the project and aims to ensure accountability of the European CAN screen activity by assessing if they were carried out as planned, and we also want to optimize the EUCAN screen implementation by SWOT analysis, as well as documenting and sharing the learning experience to answer the overarching question on lesson learned. Group P4 regards sustainability, and of course it's a very important work package, because it has to ensure sustainable implementation of the project result, of the income screen result in all participating countries, but in particular, it wants to improve sustainable implementation of organized cancer screening in countries where such programs are not yet implemented. And WP4 will do that by developing the tool and guidelines for assessment of sustainability, by developing robust and country-specific governance models, consolidating existing guidelines and tools for barrier assessment, and also solutions for overcoming the barriers. And also aims at developing methodology and guidelines for prioritizations of cancer screening, as well as develop a strategy for the sustainable European networking of cancer screening programs. The fifth one regards monitoring of data. We will have in 5.3 task, the task 5.3 will regards to extend the piloting of the data entry to the HIS platform for breast, cervical, and colorectal cancer screening. But this work package also wants to assess the ethical, legal, and social implication of data sharing. We know very well which are the problems we face with the GDPR, and also want to develop open source tools that build on top the existing European cancer screening indicators and data platform. Wants moreover to support monitoring of cancer screening at a national and also at European level, and also wants to evaluate possibilities of the European health data space I have already mentioned in context of cancer screening. Group 6 is, I think it's particularly interesting for this meeting because aims at addressing barriers and facilitators in cancer screening and wants to reduce inequality in access. As you can, and in quality, of course, in access and also in quality of breast, cervical, and colorectal cancer. And as you can see, there are 8 tasks. I just want to remember 6.6, that is about outreach strategies to vulnerable people, including transgender population. So we will discuss, we will share experience about this particular topic. But of course, we will interested in addressing barrier also for immigrant population as well as intellectual disabilities, and we also to picture strategies to increase health literacy in cancer screening.
Sorry, Paola, one more minute for you. Paola?
5 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay. WP 7, implementation research for improve the existing screening programs. This WP regards breast, colorectal, and cervical cancer screening, and in particular, it's interested in evaluating how to integrate artificial intelligence solution in the workflow of the free cancer screenings. Wants, moreover, to evaluate to identify the most effective invitation strategies for improved participation, and wants also to develop a framework to support the piloting and the implementation of self-sampling in cervical cancer screening, and also to identify the high quality online decision aid for cancer screening. We are really working on this topic a lot also in Italy, and we have we participate many years ago to a specific pragmatic trial, and we built with Livia Giordano and Paola Mosconi a decision aid tool for breast cancer screening. WP8 for its regards the new cancer screening, lung, gastric, and prostate, and in particular wants to support the methodology and harmonization of data set for the three new cancer screening, and it's also deal with some piloting both in gastric and in lung cancer. VP9 will be led by Italy. We are honored to lead this VP that is on risk-based approaches, and it wants to enhance understanding of the concept of risk and risk-based screening, and to provide Europe with recommendations for assessing the potential integration of the risk-based approach in the screening programs. And we will do that through reviewing and assessing the proposed approaches and available tools for risk stratification. We aim at sharing knowledge, best practice, and risk assessment tools for organizing and implementing risk-based prevention, risk-based intervention. We will offer to the next VP 10, some relevant scenarios for cost effectiveness modeling, and we aim also to identify pertinent research questions and to prioritize clinical questions for the guidelines development. Moreover, we will evaluate the available resource and for the existing healthcare system, and also value preference and social norms of the target population. And we will develop also suitable communication strategies for health professional and general public. It is composed by 7 tasks, but I'll go through shortly. And then the last 2 ones were packaged, sorry, it's a very long presentation. VP9, that is about modeling, cost-effective modeling and health technology assessment that aims to estimate benefit, harms, cost-effectiveness of the existing program, and the impact of addressing barriers and facilitators, as well as want to evaluate the impact of new technologies and approaches of screening, and also to develop intervention. And the last one is about capacity building. I want just to say that the objective of the capacity building VP is to empower current and future leaders of cancer screening in the exemplary countries, those countries where screening is not fully implemented, to improve their programs and to ameliorate also the quality of their programs. I have finished.
Sorry,
and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Paola. And if there are questions from the audience, we have time for only one question, please. Okay. A personal question based on your experience. Do you think we are ready for artificial intelligence implementation in cancer screening in Europe? Are really ready?
We have a storm in the middle.
Well, I think that we are at different level according to the type of cancer screening. But if we evaluate on the whole European countries, I have to say that now we have to improve the cancer screening in general. And of course, the joint action is an opportunity to evaluate how artificial intelligence is used in every countries, and also how to implement its use in the other in the majority of the member states. But I also think that we have some how can I say, some indications for breast cancer screening. We know that we can use artificial intelligence, and we also know that European guidelines also deal with artificial intelligence regarding breast cancer screening, but we are not, we cannot say that we can use artificial intelligence at the moment in cervical cancer screening, for example. But however, I think that we have to take it into account. We cannot say, okay, it's in the future and we have to.
You know, my referral is
I don't see.
to implementation in human resources and
I can't see. I can say, I can see them.
you know, my reference are on human resources and technology resources and sustainability. We are few doctors and with few resources.
Yes, I know. The importance of artificial intelligence to optimize and to optimize and the scarce resource we have. But before implementing it, we must be sure that it works. And we must be sure that we must implement also quality controls on artificial intelligence.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on. Thank you very much, and go with Elisabetta De Matteis presenting our director, general director, I think.
We were joined by, in English it's Director General, vabbè, il direttore generale dell'AS di Lecce che ci ha raggiunto.
Buonasera a tutti. Saluto in italiano, non mi avventuro in inglese, maccheronico per poi non essere perseguitato come Matteo Renzi tutta la vita per quell'infausta volta in cui si avventurò. Ma innanzitutto complimenti per questo bel evento che può sembrare un evento di nicchia. Il tema dello screening è un tema che poggia sui grandi numeri. Noi oggi invece rivolgiamo attenzione a dei numeri che partono sicuramente piccoli perché, come abbiamo detto, come ho ascoltato negli interventi, non abbiamo ancora qui da noi nessun tipo di ritorno in termini numerici, di conoscenza di quale sia l'entità del fenomeno. Però nel momento in cui noi ci rivolgiamo in un argomento come quello degli screening, che riguarda i grandissimi numeri, ad aspetti che possono sembrare di nicchia, esaltiamo il concetto di universalità del Servizio Sanitario Nazionale, dimostrando quanto è grande poi il nostro servizio sanitario. Il tema poi ci porta dritti a quello che ormai è un tema che io ogni qualvolta che vado a fare i saluti ai convegni cerco sempre di sottolineare, il tema della interdisciplinarità. In genere quando vado ai convegni chiedo sempre quanti medici di base ci sono in sala? Quanti pediatri di libera scelta? E quindi già in quel momento tradiamo l'incompletezza di quegli eventi. Guai a dire sempre a tutti i convegni scientifici dove vado quanto siamo bravi, quanto siamo belli, perché se non ci apriamo alle altre discipline non riusciamo a rendere veramente effettivo il nostro servizio. E questo mi sembra un tema che, come gli altri, ma forse più degli altri, necessita di una interdisciplinarità, connaturata. Sicuramente la figura dello psicologo, che io vado da sempre ripetendo essere ormai decisiva nelle oncologie, nelle geriatrie, nelle lungodegenze, nelle ortogeriatrie, perché siamo una società sempre più anziana, sempre più cronica, che ha bisogno di quell'apporto psicologico. Tutte le fragilità hanno bisogno di un apporto psicologico che si deve andare a integrare, ovviamente con quello più squisitamente clinico. Poi, siccome questo il tema anche della disforia di genere parte dalle giovanissime generazioni, ovviamente anche l'apporto del pediatra è quanto mai decisivo in questo approccio. Quindi nel sottolineare e ribadire l'importanza di un evento che può sembrare di nicchia, ma che apre nuovi scenari su cui tutti siamo chiamati a riflettere, l'ultimo aspetto lo pongo sul tema della comunicazione. Anche questo è un tema connaturato, trasversale a tutte quante le discipline, all'intero Servizio Sanitario Nazionale. Oggi parliamo tanto del tema della violenza, delle aggressioni, no? che sì, possono essere legate a un disservizio, a disfunzione, spesso non è così, quasi sempre legato a un deficit di comunicazione, non micro, c'è non soltanto il difetto di comunicazione che può esserci tra l'operatore e l'utente, c'è un difetto di comunicazione generale tra quello che può offrire il servizio sanitario, quello che in concreto può offrire e quello che non può offrire, che non può più offrire e che forse non deve neanche offrire. Quel deficit di comunicazione va colmato. La comunicazione è fondamentale, non la si impara sui libri di scuola, non la si insegna probabilmente neanche all'università, eppure è diventato decisivo per rendere pienamente lo svolgimento di un'attività clinica. Anche questo mi sembra un tema che sulla comunicazione va molto a intersecarsi, e su questo abbiamo tutti, anche l'amministratore, figuriamoci i clinici, abbiamo tutti moltissimo da imparare. Grazie e buon convegno.
Okay, it is now my pleasure to introduce the next speaker. Dr. Marco Idonato is an international relations and diplomatic affairs specialist. He is currently employed as a policy and project officer at the European Regional and Local Health Authorities in Brussels, where he organizes and coordinates health-related projects of European interest. He is now presenting a relation called Ensuring Equitable Access to Cancer Screening in Europe and the Role of Region Perspectives from EURIGA. Dr. Di Donato, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well in the room. Okay, thank you. So first of all, I mean, I'm very pleased to be here. It's a pleasure, actually. It's a triple pleasure to be here because first, I mean, cancer is one of our top priority for EURIGA since years now. So I'm very glad to be here for this reason. First, then, second reason is that we are very pleased when some experts related to our members asked us to provide some contribution and provide our overview on the topic at their events. And so a huge thanks goes also to the scientific direction and Dr. De Matteis for inviting us to the event. Third, actually, it's really a pleasure to be here to have this opportunity of learning. From my side, actually, both as network, but also personally, I really enjoyed the speeches of the previous speakers. And I mean, this is also an occasion for us, an opportunity for us at EURIGA to take this, the outcomes of the discussion and trigger a deeply discussion on the topic in our organization, which anyway looks at the cancer screening very carefully and closely, and in the past few years, analyzing the inequalities of cancer screening has started, let's say, look out over the topic of gender and transgender. So I will share briefly my slides, if I manage to. Let me see. I hope you can see my slide now, and now in sharing mode.
Yes, they are visible.
Okay, good. My name is Marco Di Donato. I work as a policy and project officer at EURIGA, the European Regional and Local Health Authorities. And today I will try to walk you through like another perspective, more on the policy side, and presenting the work that we do at EURIGA with regions, and also the vision that we have about, inequalities and the role that regions can play in ensuring equitable access to cancer screening. So very, very briefly, a quick overview on the organization. So EURIGA is a no-profit organization, no-profit association based in Brussels, whose members are regional and local health authorities. And actually, it's a very unique network in that sense, because there is the only one that brings together health, regional health authorities in Europe. At the moment, today we count 24 members from 14 different countries, and altogether they speak and take care of more than 50 million citizens. So the exchanges we have with them is very impactful both on our activities but also on the citizens of those regions. We work on the on several EU projects. So we're partnering with health authorities in European projects, also on the cancer mission ones. One of the current we have is the OncoDIR project, which is focused on primary prevention of colorectal cancer in Europe. As you can see from the map, I mean, 5 out of the 24 members are from Italy. So the Italian presence is, I would say, massive in our network, and that's why also we connect a lot with this region. And I'm happy also to see that Dr. Mantilini was in the program representing Toscana, which is also one of our members. As an association, we don't have like a disease-specific focus, so we don't have like a specific focus on cancer. We touch upon different topics such as mental health, promotion and prevention, healthcare workforce and skills, obesity, integrated care, digitalization and transformation of healthcare system. But I mean, cancer has been identified by our members as one of the top priorities of the network. So we work closely with regional experts in a working group dealing with topics such as cancer screening. But I can give you a flash overview on that also later in a slide. And then just for your information, as Euriga, we have also a more institutional role because we run the secretariat of the Interregional Group on Health and Wellbeing at the Committee of the Regions in Brussels since 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So beyond the regions that are part of our network, we, let's say, talk on a regular basis with politicians from other regions that are members of the Committee of the Regions. Quickly jumping to the next slide. So why regions are important in this? Why regions are important in ensuring equitable access to cancer screening in Europe? Well, as you know, health is still a national competence in all the EU countries, but in 19 of the 27 of those countries, so in 2/3 of those countries, the responsibilities in the health sector are delegated to regional local health authorities, and that is the case also for Italy, as you know. So that means that regions have a key role in implementing policies and in delivering healthcare services and in promoting health for citizens. I mean, I listed here some of the elements that, in our opinion, at Euriga are key when we present, I mean, the role of regions in ensuring equitable access to cancer screening. First of all, the proximity to the community. So the proximity to the community of regional authorities allow them to detect population health needs and local challenges before and tailor then the interventions based on those. And they, well, let's say, are at the front line addressing other determinants of health that could be behavioral, that could be cultural, that could be social and economic, so structural. Why still the proximity is also facilitate the connection between people and institutions, both not at the regional level, but also at the more national and European level. And then also last but not least, they act as living laboratories for innovation. So what we find in regions is that their innovative approach, I mean, can boost upscaling of practices in Europe and can be also ground for European cooperation and integration. Of course, we have member states, we have regions, but the EU still play a key role in defining the design, the frameworks in which regions and the countries will operate in terms of health. And here it's how we try to reach the regions to the EU level. Very quickly, here the keyword are sharing knowledge. So we use the network to boost knowledge exchange among networks, and all these exchanges flows into our advocacy activities. So ending up in position paper, events, cooperation, European projects that we bring to the European level. And then, of course, we are part of projects that have direct impact on the territory of those regions. So here, a flash overview on our working group on cancer, because, I mean, as I said, cancer is one of our top priorities, and we established this working group to exchange best practices on the matter. Screening has always been one of the topic the most discussed, I would say, so we keep the conversation ongoing in this group because we trust in the power of three things: of the sharing practices, as I mentioned, the power of partnering in European projects. We usually also try to build consortia with regions to implement then European projects, also in the cancer field, and the power of information. So what we try to do is to vehicle what is happening at EU level to regions, and this allow us and them to discover how that frameworks are declined in other contexts, deepening what those frameworks are about, and then try to adapting and shaping the policies on the ground according to what could be, I mean, the inspirational practices that we find within our network. Of course, in the frameworks that we try to map and we follow very closely, there is the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, on which I have a slide, but I won't take much time because I think that Dr. Mandellini very well presented it and introduced the plan. But here, what I would like to stress is that, I mean, the plan launched in 2021 has a cross-cutting approach. So it covers research and innovation, digital personalized medicine, and also has this focus on reducing cancer inequalities across Europe. And I would stop here because, I mean, inequalities is something that really ring a bell when we talk about gender and health. So one of the initiatives that I would like to stress here that comes from is framed in the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, this European Cancer Inequality Registry, which is, I mean, a tool to collect and display data on cancer in Europe with a specific focus on inequalities. And having said that, I have a slide on this after this, but as you may know, the new commission has at least appointed in the week, and we see that the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan remains one of the key initiatives for the next European Commission mandate, as mentioned in the mission letter by von der Leyen to the new Commissioner designate to health and animal welfare. And so there will be an occasion to work with regions in implementing the plan in the upcoming years. On inequality registries, very briefly, so this is a tool that provides a regular reporting, let's say, mechanism based on quantitative cancer indicators, covering the whole cancer continuum. So it's not only prevention, but it's also treatment and survivorship. It has key focus areas that can be of interest to regions because it tries to track geographical and regional differences, the urban versus rural disparities, and also socioeconomic inequalities, meaning education, income levels, age, and sex. It is composed of three, let's say, bits, a data tool to explore and compare indicators on cancer across Europe, and some publications. The cancer country profiles, which is published in all years, which helps countries understanding strengths and weaknesses in cancer prevention and care, and analytical reports delivered by OECD, where it's possible to compare also the country's performance at EU level. And this is, I think, very interesting for regions because it could, like from data, we know that can be a game changer when it comes to building evidence-based policy that have and may have an impact on the population. So I wanted to report this flagship initiative as one of those we really look close. So coming back to why regions are important. So I think that some of the elements I will analyze in my next 2-3 slides really match with the discussion that we had today and the points that have been raised. For example, data, the need for data and the need for more disaggregated data in terms of granularity. So trying to having the regions, of course, under coordination and thanks also to the framework provided by the member state, stay more keen in having data, high-level data, and this might be, I mean, that could be successful if the region can, I mean, keep this proximity and connection with the population level, because poor data collection, I mean, compounds invisibility. So, and this happens to, especially for vulnerable groups. And so our perspective is that data collection and for data collection and monitoring, the regional authorities can play a critical role in collecting and analyzing data to monitor cancer screening participation rates and effectiveness. And another point I would add here is the importance of sharing data and being involved in the international networks with other regions, because we see that, for example, also for cross-border countries, having an infrastructure for sharing data among them help those regional systems to perform better in terms of health policies. In terms of investment, of course, the regions are also at the forefront of some of the infrastructure that help pursuing these objectives, ensuring equality in health and especially in cancer screening access. And they, because of their proximity, as I mentioned, they have a key role in public awareness raising. So organizing public campaigns, making this connection and direct filtration with the citizens to listen from them and see what are the needs. They, of course, in terms of infrastructure, they have also a role in reducing barriers to access that maybe are not related to the healthcare system itself, but the overall infrastructure that is built, let's say, surrounding. Key role in research and innovation, of course. Related to the public awareness campaigns, I mean, regions can have, through community-based approach, also a key role in addressing stigma and discrimination, which is also something that pop-ups when we talk about, I mean, gender and access to healthcare services. And lastly, I would stress the importance of also of primary care, because I mean, also from the literature, it's true that having like a structured and a primary care system that is very close to the citizen helps and be more effective in reducing the cancer risk factors first, but also improving, for example, some of the determinants of health, like health literacy. And here, I think, and this is, I think, really matched with what was already said before from previous speakers, the importance of skills. not only hard skills, so the clinical ones, but I mean also the soft skills and the interpersonal skills of the healthcare professionals in dealing with the specific population groups. And lastly, sharing good practices. This is something that we promote quite a lot in our network, and we look at those, especially in this perspective, as something that could be transferable to other regions. So learn not only from the successes on the ground, but also from the what have been the challenges from them to take the lessons forward and take that forward for the uptake and upscale of those practices in other similar contexts. And as I mentioned, we so far we didn't have like a structured debate on transgender in our network, but we know of some members that has somehow this dimension included in their work. For example, Scotland, which is one of our members, has a cancer strategy for the next decades, and in this framework, they performed an equalities records impact assessment where the transgender dimension was very looked at. And for example, we know that there have been going collaboration between Scotland's National Cervical Cancer Screening Program and the National Gender Identity Clinical Network to improve access to cervical screening services through, for example, information system resources and trainings as well, and the cervical screening record processes. So that's just an overview of something that we found out in our network that maybe could be interesting for you also to dive into. And as concluding remarks, I mean, these are our takeaways from our work with regions. So they are crucial in ensuring no communities left behind in cancer screening initiatives. There is, of course, a need for stronger regional leadership, innovation and collaboration. And I'm very glad to be here also to connect with other experts from the Apulia region, but also from other regions in Italy, because, I mean, we are always open to listen and to leverage your expertise and experience to boost healthcare promotion and prevention in Europe. The importance of cooperation with communities and the importance of the collaboration and knowledge exchange in EU networks such as us or others in which you might have been involved. And I would leave you with a sentence from Stelios Kyriakides, the former European Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, which almost 1 year ago said that regions play a key role in building the European Health Union. And I would take this forward because we see that now the new Commission is coming. The European Health Union is still a priority. And so we will be very happy to collaborate with you in future on the topic of cancer screening and also fostering our discussion on the topic of gender and transgender. So I would leave you with a big thank you for the invitation. Here you can find more information about the organization if you might not be aware of it, and my contact if you want to follow up of anything related to the presentation of the organization itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Di Donato. Are there any questions from the audience? If there are not any, I would like to ask you something. You mentioned the role of information and especially the role of targeted information for local populations. Should we start thinking about health communication as a region-based practice, especially as far as transgender communication, transgender
sorry,
people?
may I interrupt you because I had an overlapping with the colleagues speaking, so I didn't get the last part of the question. Because of the proximity to the mic, I didn't get the second part, so...
Sure. Should we start thinking about health communication as a region-based practice, especially as far as, in this case, transgender persons are concerned and their needs?
Okay, I hope I get the question because the audio was a bit disturbed. But I mean, I think that communication is something that really relies on the effectiveness of regions in doing that activity. Because what we see is that it's also a matter of trust. If the regional authorities, if the regional entities and agencies can speak and can speak effectively with people, the results, you have more effective and efficient results in healthcare. So I think that the same applies with gender and transgender. And I think also that in this communication bit, I think that it's also very important the raising awareness, the awareness raising, and also the sensitiveness raising about the topic in the community, both in the healthcare professionals environment, but also in the, let's say, overall population. Regional population. So I would say yes, having like a regional approach would be, I think, very effective in at least having more people, involved, and those people feel they are part of something and can help in addressing those issues. So I think, from my end.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? No? Okay, then let's move on. I pass the word to Dr. Ronzino.
Ve lo dico in italiano, un minuto di pazienza per caricare la presentazione del prossimo speaker. Vero, Marco?
No, è su USB. Vai su USB. Sì.
Intanto riflettiamo. Ok. We can move on with the program, and with a very pleasure and honor, we have now Professor Pierluigi Lopalco, who is full professor of hygiene and preventive medicine in Unisalento, and he is very known here in Puglia and in Italy from the times of the COVID. And he gave a great he gave a great help to all of us in medicine and in social population. Thank you very much, Professor Lopalco, please.
So, thank you for the invitation, and also for your very kind introduction. And I'm a vaccine expert, so I'm a bit out of my usual environment in this conference, but I'm very happy to talk about HPV prevention, and especially how can we improve the prevention in a special population that requires peculiar attention and more access to healthcare, more equitable access to healthcare, especially when we talk about preventive services. I understand that you focus pretty much on secondary prevention. I will talk about primary prevention. I will talk about vaccination. So how can we block the infection of this very nasty virus? That these figures is just to say that we are not talking about one virus. We are talking about a cloud of viruses. It's almost a quasi-species. So we have about 200 different strains of these viruses that are very similar, these papilloma viruses. These are the 118 that are most important for humans, and they are 118. And among these strains, we can encounter some strains that are not that much aggressive, other strains that are very aggressive. And how can we understand that? It's not easy. It's not that trivial to classify a human papillomavirus as highly pathogenic. For instance, this study that was performed by the most important study group in the world, that is at IARC in Lyon, that finally, let's say, found an agreement on which are the strain of human papillomaviruses that are those causing most cases of cancer, because this is, of course, the nasty disease that we want to prevent. And you see, there was, at the end, pretty much an agreement between what was so far the phylogenetic classification and what was happening in the real world, so the epidemiological classification. So they collected a mountain of data from biopsies, from lesions, with a strong worker classification of each lesion, and because the fact that in one lesion we find one strain, it doesn't mean that it's that strain that is causing the cancer, because it is very rare that you find just one strain. Usually you can find 2, 3, 4 different strains that affected that person during her or his life. So it was pretty much a very, very hard work, and at the end they classify strains as a high risk and low risk. Why doing so? Because the high-risk strains need to be addressed and targeted by vaccination. HPV-16 is one of the most nasty strains, and it was the basis to build the vaccines against papilloma viruses. And this is the structure and the principal viral proteins that are building the virus. I wanted just to focus on the L1 major capsid protein. Why? Because that is the key that allowed us to build an effective vaccine. So taking into your mind that L1 protein. L2 is the other big structural protein, but the problem with the L2 is that it is not stable. L2 is the protein that is varying more frequently, so it's not a good candidate for a vaccine. When you have to build a vaccine, you need to find a protein that is stable, that the virus is not modifying, and at the same time is a good target for antibodies, for the immune system. So L1 was the right one. And I mean, this is an important concept to understand about HPV. HPV, from infection to cancer, it's a long trip. It's a long trip, and this long trip can be reversed. This is very important to understand. It's not just one direction. So I can get the infection, I can get a very, very hard infection, I can have even starting a dysplasia that is of a high grade, and this dysplasia can be reverted at some time. So if our immune system is working very well, this dysplasia can be reverted. At some point that we can more or less say about here, grade 3 cervical intraepithelial neoplasia, from here on it is not reversible. Then it is something that we must intervene, absolutely. Okay, so, and what is the output of these infections? All the figures that I will show you are just like says, it's, you have, I believe, to multiply by 4 or 5, at least, for different reasons. Maybe the tip of the iceberg is something that we can observe with more accurately because it's a cancer, and it's a cancer that is very visible. So it's recorded, it's reported, it's diagnosed, but there are, I mean, all the infections, the low-grade dysplasia, all those dysplasias that are eventually reversing and going back are not diagnosed, are not reported, and the infections themselves are not reported because the surveillance system for any sexually transmitted disease are not working 100%. What is interesting is that the overall burden of the HPV infection is affecting both genders. Because it is true that our first, let's say, thought is about cervical cancer. And in fact, the first vaccine was registered against cervical cancer, and at the present, the WHO, the World Health Organization, launched a campaign, a global campaign for eliminating cervical cancer, so not HPV-related cancers. Okay, so cervical cancer is the big killer, is the number one, but it is not the main output of an HPV infection, because on top of the cervical cancer, you have the other genital cancers, but you have the head and neck cancers that are terrible, that are very aggressive, that we do not have a screen for them. And there is the other big chapter of pathology, that is the genital warts, that are not trivial. Genital warts are not trivial. They can ruin the life of a person. This is the same figure adapted with the Italian figures. Again, they are some about, okay? Read about. And these are the most recent publication, and they are collecting data up to 2020. So probably we are pretty much close to the reality. And this is also the result of a country like Italy, where we have already in place a vaccination program that started in 2007, 2008, and we have in place a screening program. So this is quite interesting because we understand that we have here the infection, and after years we have dysplasia and cancer, okay? So the duration of the infection is key, is very important. Duration of infection. So it's how many years we are living with this virus on our mucosa. That is important. And this is apparently also depending on sexual habits, like the age at sexual initiation, of course, because the earliest, the longer we have contact with this virus. The number of sexual partners that is correlating with the prevalence. So the higher is the number of partners, the higher is the prevalence of HPV positivity, and also the concomitant presence of HPV in the partner. So if you have multiple partners and most of these partners have HPV infection ongoing, of course, the intensity of the infection is higher and the duration of persistence of the infection is longer. Here. Now, this is a systematic review with meta-analysis that can eventually give us the idea of the numbers, how large this phenomenon is. And this phenomenon is large. This phenomenon is large. So this is the presence of papillomavirus, any papillomavirus, high risk, and in particular the HPV-16 in men. So it's quite impressive because it's 1 in 3 men, 1 in 3. And you see, sorry, this is the age and it disappeared from the slide. But you see that we can say that after the sexual debut, 1 in 3 men is carrying an HPV. 1 in 5 is carrying an HPV that is high risk, so highly pathogenic. So the prevalence, the presence in the population of this virus is absolutely high. It means that we can consider the man the natural reservoir of this virus. And the man can, say, have some awareness of the infection because of words. So words are not only, let's say, painful, they are not only ugly, but they can eventually be a sentinel of the infection. Not only, but the importance of the words is that they can also be a sign that that person is a person at risk of cancer. So if you have warts, you have a higher risk of cancer. So look at this. This is a study in Denmark. Usually these studies are coming from Nordic countries because they are the only countries in Europe where there is a reliable sexual transmitted disease system. They have good systems starting from schools, they collect data, but they do diagnosis because they have really a good system, public health system for making diagnosis and collecting data. So they are starting, this is an interesting study because they're starting from people that was diagnosed with the warts. What happened next? Okay? And what is interesting here is that this is the relative risk ratio. So it's how many times higher is the risk of cancer comparing with those that did not have warts. 20 times higher for anus cancer, 8 times higher for penis cancer, and look at women. It's almost the same. It's a bit less for the cervical cancer, that is probably less correlated, but when you go to the external genital cancer, like vulval cancer, is 15 times higher. So warts are a preliminary sign, can be a preliminary sign of cancer. In any case, are indicating that that is a person that needs prevention. And this is for head and neck cancer. Again, head and neck cancer are very nasty. We are talking about lingual cancer, pharyngeal cancer, oral cancer, lips, etc. And these are cancers that are not preventable at all, And they are very aggressive. And once they are diagnosed, the fatality rate are very high. And again, you see that it's 3 times, 5 times higher in people that had genital warts. So, what is interesting as a conclusion of this work is that there is what I just said. So your lifetime risk of cancer, if you have genital warts, is increasing. The problem is that this risk remains elevated at least for 10 years after diagnosis. Okay, and this is because this virus is living with you for years. Okay, so when you have a diagnosis of a genital warts, you know that that virus is there. The virus is there and will be there for years. You can imagine that it's very hard to find data on sexually transmitted disease. Is much, much harder when it comes to sexual behavior. So there are not that many publications. The only thing that we know is that risk of HPV infection and all risks related to HPV infections are higher in the population of men who have sex with men in comparison with the same population of heterosexual men. And this is just one example. This is anal HPV prevalence that is much higher in men who have sex with men compared with the same population of heterosexual men. This is a quite interesting study on transgender women that also have a higher HPV prevalence, even higher than men who have sex with men. You can see that the numbers are small, even though this is a study in 2 large American cities. And this was a selected group of people that was not vaccinated. Okay, so it was naive from an immunological point of view. And it is quite impressive that 86% in transgender women compared with 70% in MSM from anal specimen. Oral specimen, it was 9.1 in TGW, 9.5 in MSM, but antibodies, that is quite important because it's a sign also of a previous infection, was detected in 84.1 of transgender women compared with 54.6 in MSM. So, other important point, nobody heard about the existence of a vaccine. Nobody. And we are in 2012, 2014 in the US, when it's already 7-8 years that the vaccine was distributed, was authorized and distributed. This is surveillance in Italy. We have some surveillance of sexually transmitted disease in Italy. Not bad, but not well functioning. It is absolutely affected by underreporting and underdiagnosis. And what is interesting is that during the latest years, the overall notifications of STD were declining. No? There is this overall decline here. No? This decline is quite interestingly linked to heterosexual men, not in MSM where we have an increase, and other thing. It is pretty much linked to condylomatosis. So what we eventually can, we can make an hypothesis that it is linked to vaccination, to the vaccination program, that is starting to have some effect. Because otherwise it's hardly it's hard to correlate to other factors. But again, this is a system that is not working pretty much well. So consider that the other STDs are not decreasing. That drop is linked to condylomatosis. Chlamydia, syphilis, gonorrhea are increasing in all groups, still increasing in all groups. So the decline is pretty much linked to condylomatosis. So hopefully we are gaining something. So finally, a few words on the vaccine. This is the breakthrough invention in the vaccine production, is the construction of this VLP, the vaccine-like particles. If you take a look at this, it looks like the virus. It looks like a virus. It is not. This is a vaccine. It is just a fact that if you put in a glass the L1 protein starts doing like this, magically, the L1 protein take that shape. So the pentamers assume this spheric appearance, and it resembles pretty much the envelope of the virus. So these small particles, this is much, much smaller than the real virus. These small particles of L1 protein are very effective in inducing an immune response. There are 2 Nobel Prizes behind this invention. And this is the story in the US and in Europe of the authorization of the vaccine. We start from a bivalent vaccine that was only designed for the cervical cancer, so including 16 and 18 strain. And then there was the 4-valent vaccine that was authorized also for boys, first in the US, then in Europe. And finally, this is the the vaccine that we are using nowadays, both in Europe and the US, that is the 9-valent, so covering much, much more. And it's used both for girls and boys. This is a situation in Europe. I don't know if you are familiar with this tool. This is the vaccine scheduler that is collecting data. It's from the ECDC, the European Center for Disease Control, that are collecting all the European vaccination schedules, and the schedules are shown in this way. I just show this that there are not two countries in Europe that have the same system, the same vaccination system. This is just the schedule, and, oh, sorry, come si va indietro? No. Può andare indietro, una freccetta indietro? No, because it's just fun, just for fun. I collected the notes. These are the notes, okay? You know there are 28 countries, 27 now because UK is not there, and you have 31 different specifications, so there are more notes than countries. Fundamental message is that in every European country we have a public program for HPV. Almost every country, in almost every country, this program is for free and is addressing boys and girls. Only Bulgaria and Romania are just addressing the girls. And this is just for budgetary restrictions. So this is in a nutshell. Oops, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so are these vaccines effective in non-binary persons? We know very little. There are no specific studies, but this is something that we can observe from some pivotal controlled trials that were also used for registration. And this is in a man who has sex with men, and I mean, the efficacy is there. This vaccine is extremely efficacious. It's extremely efficacious. And I don't know into the details, but I mean, you can see that we are talking about very high levels of efficacy. And also from real-world data. So the real-world data are those data, the so-called effectiveness data. So the data of the real efficacy of the vaccine when it is used in the real world. So in the real use, and you can see from Canada, England, Australia, US, there is a proof that when you start a program, then you have a reduction in wars, a reduction in cancers. These vaccines are working very, very well. What is the vaccine coverage? So they are working, but are they reaching the real target? In all the articles that I collected on vaccine efficacy, most of the articles, the final conclusion is this one, that much efforts must be done in reaching the population, much effort must be done in vaccinating people. So we have a vaccine. This vaccine is very effective, but vaccine coverage is low. This is an interesting guide that at least are showing us the way we should offer vaccination. Okay, this is the guide from Cleveland Clinic. It says something that is very, very simple. You don't need a vaccination office, you don't need a vaccination service. You just have to offer the vaccine in any opportunity, at any opportunity of any preventive service, of any STD clinic, when you reach a population that needs this vaccination. And you see that there is a clear yes to offer HPV vaccination at any opportunity. And this is also an interesting thought. HPV immunization exemplifies vaccine politics. It's not a vaccine like measles. It's different than measles. It's absolutely, because in any case, HPV is related to sex. It's related to our more inner and private attitudes. It raises questions around equity in offer, equity in awareness, equity in access. And finally, I just wanted to, maybe I'm a bit long. Final slide. I don't know if you know this story, but this is another question and another complication of HPV vaccination, the alleged adverse events. HPV vaccination has been linked to anything, even with volcano eruptions. You start a HPV program, there is a volcano eruption, it was the HPV program. I swear. And this is one of those cases. These are two strange syndromes, POTS and CRPS, are neurovegetative syndromes, very, very common among adolescents. They are psychogenic syndromes. They have been related in Japan to the start of the HPV vaccination program. This is how dropped the vaccine coverage. Okay? It was from almost 80% to almost zero. Then it was affected Denmark because there was one neurologist that was passionate about this and wrote a book and then produced a video. This video is called Vaccinated Girls. So, and are all these stories of these girls that were wasted by vaccination. And finally, last but not least, our report that picked up this story from Japan, from Denmark, and made up a TV show talking about this story. And again, also in Italy, we had a drop after that TV show that was somehow repaired, but the damage was done. So this is also another thing that we have to think about. So this is the virtuous route. We should have availability, we have availability of a tool that is working, but we need to offer it to raise awareness and to improve acceptance, and acceptance is not trivial. So I think that the conclusions are there and are very clear. There is a lot of work to be done in order to make this preventive service really effective and accepted among those that much may benefit from this vaccination. And so thank you for, and sorry if you, I was a bit long.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your contribution. Unfortunately, we cannot make any question to the professor, but we reserve for another event.
Okay, I'm now presenting Dr. Livia Giordano. She is a specialist in hygiene and preventive medicine with a PhD in human oncology. And is currently responsible for the screening programs project committee and for the epidemiology and screening SSD in Turin's Città della Salute e della Scienza General Hospital. She has both directed and cooperated with various projects about primary and secondary prevention, especially regarding oncological prevention. Please, Dr. Giordano.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here, and thank you very much for the organizer for inviting me. It's a pity that I wasn't able to see the previous presentation, but in any case, I hope that we can get some, let's say, slides or minutes of the meeting. So I try to share my screen. Did you see?
Yes, now we can see it.
Yeah, I try to have the full screen. It's okay?
Okay, now we can see it.
Okay. So I was already introduced by the chairman, and I work in Torino in the Center for Cancer Prevention, and I would like to share with you some experiences, but I prefer to say some consideration we made about transgender and screening. Just to let you know the context in which I'm working in Turin. Turin is a city with about 850,000 inhabitants. And here in my city, the breast and cervical cancer screening started in 1992, in the last century. And in 1996, we extended the screening to the entire region for breast and cervical cancer screening. And from 2003, we started also with colorectal cancer screening. So this in numbers means that every year we invite about 100,000 women for breast and cervical cancer. As a screening program, we want, of course, to invite all the target population, but we are conscious that in our population we have a vulnerable subgroup of this population. And this is the reason why last October we dedicated a day to make some consideration about which kind of strategy we can put in place in order to increase the access to screening of this fragile subgroup of our population, in order to, let's say, to give to our contest a better service. And at the time, it was the first time that we consider also the transgender people living in our area. Just to let you know which are the protocols we are using, which are more or less the same in all the Italian areas. For cervical cancer, we offer a pap smear for younger women from 25 to 29. For older women, we offer the HPV test every 5 years. For mammography screening, the test is a mammography every year for women from 45 to 49, and every 2 years for the other group of women. And this test for colorectal cancer is the fecal occult blood for men and women from 50 to 69 every 2 years. We have an invitation letter signed by the GP with a prefix appointment that can be changed, of course, calling the regional toll-free number or using the website. There is a very consistent feedback, so always to all the users of our screening program and to GPs. All the steps are free of charge. There are no need of medical prescription. But what happens? That invitation for population, for our population, for breast and cervical, are directed at individuals who are recognized as female by the state. So we exclude transgender men who have completed the legal gender assignment process. And also we exclude with our, let's say, invitation systems, transgender women, of course only for breast cancer screening, who have not completed the process. So before already Professor Garcia, if I remember well his name, speak about estimates. This is what I found in the literature. There are an heterogeneity of estimation on how many transgender live in Italy. But if we use the 0.3, 0.6 estimate, we can consider that about 400, maybe more, thousand individuals are transgender. Of course, this estimate is to have this kind of a number is very challenging due to the underreporting, first of all, the societal stigma, the differences on how gender identity is measured. And so, as already mentioned before, all these estimates are based on self-identification. I have tried also to estimate the number of transgender living in Torino, and here we can say that we have more or less something between 3, 5, 6,000 individuals. Also, here it's very difficult maybe to identify this kind of population. These numbers might be considered small from one side, but I think that the aims of the screening and the ethical principle underlying the screening itself lead us to make further consideration. First of all, we have to remember the objective and the aims of the screening. And also we have to remember the ethical principle of screening, and also some general consideration about the vulnerable groups. If I start from the beginning, what is screening? We all know the screening is the offer of a procedure to an asymptomatic population. The endpoint of the screening is not only to diagnose more cancers, more cases of cancer, but to a reduction of mortality, overall mortality, but even better, the mortality for that specific neoplasm. And here are the essential requirements that we need to have before to start a screening process. First of all, the screening must be cost effective, and this is very important. We must, of course, have the equipment that should be easily available and accessible. There must be an acceptability of the screening procedure among the target population, both from the, let's say, policymaker and also for the general public. But even more important, one of the essential requirements is equity. That means that we have give the access to screening to all our population, all the target population which live in our area. And then we have also to remember that we are not speaking about opportunistic screening, which is a spontaneous preventive activity, but we are speaking about organized population-based screening, which is typically proposed by an institution for a screening of proven efficacy. Otherwise, it's not, let's say, ethical to promote the screening process in the population, with a very robust network of organizational management and systems for evaluating the impact of this screening. And so, if we can say that from an opportunistic point of view, if we compare opportunistic approach and organized approach, the aims are mainly the same, but we can say that in an organized screening, we have to, let's say, to underline that we have the duty of equity in access and the duty of coverage all the target population. So the screening is not just the administration of a single test, it's a process, and we have to follow all the process with all the, let's say, key element of this process. Another thing that we have to take into account that screening is an essential levels of care from 2001. What means? Means that screening is included in one of that set of services, activities promoted by the Italian National Health Service to guarantee, that must be guaranteed to all citizens living in Italy, regardless of the region in which they reside. But I would like to add also, regardless any kind of condition, the religion, the socioeconomic status, the sex, or the let's say, educational level. This is very important. So screening is a LEA in the area of public health care in living and working environment. And so we must remember that considering that screening is a LEA, it's mandatory to offer the screening to all our population. So it's crucial to maximize the benefits and minimize the harms, and we must again remember that screening is offered and should be offered rather than imposed. Informed consent is very important, also for this subgroup of the population. We must respect confidentiality and avoid any kind of discrimination. So equitality is something very important and means that we have to give everyone the opportunity to be as healthy as possible. But we know also that in our population there are some vulnerable population subgroups. The definition of this subgroup is very different. We can use the term hard to reach population or also hidden population. This last is sometimes used particular to refer to those who don't want to be found or contacted, and we have also to respect this decision. And of course, also we have to remember that these hard to reach population and hidden population are transient and social invisible population, and their sex to screening programs is critical. So in my context, I was involved for many years in order to find the best approach to contact this and to identify this subgroup of the population in order to increase their awareness about cancer prevention and participation in screening. But we must, before to identify the hard to reach population and to characterize, to understanding the barriers and the facilitator elements, and to be very, let's say, smart in order to find alternative strategy to promote the participation in screening, and maybe to try to define a specific strategy for each setting. Here in Piedmont, in Torino, we are working on different subgroups, vulnerable subgroups, like ethnic minorities, older women, older patients, geographic rural isolation, people with mental illness, immigrants, prisoners, people with psychiatric morbidities. And now we are trying to find some solution also for transgender individuals. And so the first thing we have done is to search some interesting article in the literature in order to better understand this phenomenon. And this is, I think, a very important article made by a group in Milano in connection with the IOM Association. And they made first a review, a literature review, where it was very evident that this kind of population has a higher consumption, for instance, of alcohol and tobacco, and also a high rates of infection with HPV or HIV, and this can be, let's say, connected probably. I know that Dr. Garcia said before that there is no an evidence of higher risk for cancer, but I think the data are very few and we must invest in further research on this field. From this review, it was very clear that transgender and gender diverse people were less likely to participate in cancer screening programs, and there are some social and economic determinants that seem to drive this behavior. And one thing very important is the lack of knowledge about the need of this subgroup from the healthcare practitioner. This is one very important thing, and we have to work on this direction. Another, I think, very important paper, again from the same group from Milan, is this survey. They made a survey, well-based computer-aided web interview in Italy, and this is also very important, very close to our real life, in connection again with the Italian National Cancer Society. And they interview both oncological health professionals and transgender individuals, of course on a voluntary basis, and the TGD persons were contacted through advocacy group and consumer panel. And also, this suggests also this kind of people, we can find some information if we work very close together, the advocacy group, which are currently involved in with these people. So at the end, they had, interview with around 300 of health professional and 200 of transgender. And the main outcome was that among professional, about 20% felt competent in providing care to TGD patients, only 20%. 21% declare not to feel comfortable in treating this kind of patients. And two-thirds said that there is a lack of education in cancer care, and they believe that this topic should be included in the university curricula. Among TGD, more than 70% reported they had never joined any cancer screening program, and reported also 1/3 more acts of discrimination by healthcare providers, and half of them believe that gender identity might have an impact on cancer risk. So very different number if we compare the transgender population to the general population, where the participation to cancer screening is higher, both for breast, cervical, and colorectal cancer. I think that one very important thing is that is a thing of discrimination by health professional, and they declare that this discrimination is more frequent, 3 times more, in the most vulnerable category within this vulnerable group, like people with HIV and people undergoing active hormonal treatment. This is not just an Italian scenario, and this scenario is very similar also in other parts of the world, like in US or Australia, Northern Europe. And again, also the feeling to be less competent by the health professional is something present also in other regions in the world. So many articles in the literature about the barriers and the facilitators. Here there is a list, but I think that, of course, we can find individual patient factor, like, for instance, the socioeconomical status, lower education and financial instability, of course, are linked to a less participation in screening compared to, for instance, higher income or more education, which improve the screening practices. Also, the family support is very important, because living in a setting where the family or peer support is very poor, of course, impact on the awareness and also on the participation on screening. On the opposite, having a family history of cancer, positive role model, and peer support encourage adherence to cancer screening. Again, it's very important how we, as a health operator, communicate with this subgroup of the population. Open communication, gentle approach, provide a recommendation, increase the compliance to screening. And also, if we would be able to create a welcoming clinical environment when we invite this kind of people in our services, this can, of course, facilitate the contact of transgender with the national health systems. Of course, the general policy of the country is also very important. If the country has legal protection related to their sexual orientation, this, of course, is very favorable for this kind of people. So this group of oncologists and the Aryan Society also made a statement called the CISI recommendation, where they try to give some recommendation for different steps in the pathways of the oncological approach of a person. And within this pathway, also screening is included. It's very important that they suggest to improve the development of cancer screening guidelines and practices referred to transgender and gender diverse individuals. And I think that one very important statement they made with the CZ statement is that they say that we must start to speak about screening of organs, which has nothing to do with gender. And so screening programs must be designed in inclusive and gender sensitivity approaches to ensure no one is left behind. I just want to show you some other articles like this one from the Scienziano group in Brussels, where they, for instance, has underlined the importance of self-sampling in cervical cancer screening in order to overcome some barriers. And we have to work on this and maybe to find some innovative strategy using self-sampling with this kind of population. There are also some, for instance, for breast cancer screening, some guidelines from the Scientific Association, European and international, but there is a great heterogeneity. And so again, we have to work in order to to standardize this recommendation and to follow the same direction. One consideration, we have made one, let's say, big consideration about prostate cancer. We know that maybe not tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow, we will introduce prostate cancer screening in our context. And so I think that the approach of transgender person will be even more crucial. And we have to, I think, let's say, plan in advance on how we can inform transgender group of the present, the opportunity to have this kind of screening, and also which kind of cutoff for the PSA we have we will have to use in order to let's say to invite for further assessment or to follow up this person. When we made this meeting in Torino last year, we discussed a lot about communication, because we think that communication is very important in this field. We must try to change our language and our terminology before Dr. Garcia share some consideration about this topic, because sometimes we use some terms that doesn't align with the transgender person identity, and so we must be we must learn on how to communicate and to use the right terminology. We must also know, for instance, that we must better know the medical history, for instance, the hormone therapy history, the surgical history, in order to recommend the right follow-up and therapy. We must know that also from the communication point of view that we must they must face concern about privacy and respect. So we have to moderate our language and to respect the right, the privacy in general. And so to give training to health professional, I think is mandatory in the next future. The misgender is something.
Dr. Giordano,
Yes?
sorry to interrupt you. Please, 5 more minutes.
5 minutes? Because I cannot hear you.
5 more minutes for your
Yes, okay, I
finish your relation. Thank you.
Another phenomenon is the misgendering, which determine minority stress and this population, and so this is why it's so important to communicate in the right way. And so from all this consideration, we made some recommendation to all our screening operators to avoid assumption, to be informed and respectful, to ensure privacy, to listen actively, to address discomfort, and to review our policy and procedure. So this is my last slide. The next step, so now we are in a theoretical framework. We would like to shift in a very pragmatic and practical framework, keeping in mind this golden rule. If you have it, let's say the organ, you have to check it. It doesn't matter if you are male, female, or something else. We have to work on the invitation system because this is one very critical point, because we want to be able to manage this population in a proper way. And so probably we have to make some ad hoc intervention in order to create specific identities. We want to set up a training, awareness raising programs, both for health workers involved in the screening, but also for all the health professionals around the screening process, but also for the general population. We want to inform the community of transgender that is their right to assess our screening, and we have to give information on where, how, and when they can have access. We have to try to create welcoming and gender identity friendly environments. Privacy should be respected, and to collaborate. We don't want to work in separate silos, but to work together with oncologists, endocrinologists, psychologists, and all the other persons who are connected with this population, and very important, the local association. We must begin to collect data in order to better know the phenomenon and always to prioritize the individual in their uniqueness. Just to see you, the next step of PASO, which is the federation of the different screening associations, we would like to collaborate with IOM to draft Italian guidelines on screening protocols in transgender population. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a very nice evening. I cannot hear you because...
Can you hear me now?
Now, yes, but the audio is it's not so well. But from the beginning, it doesn't matter, but...
Okay. Then thank you for your intervention. I'm now passing the word to Dr. Ronzino for the last speaker of the... sorry, Dr. De Giorgio for the last speaker of the day.
Thank you very much, Dr. Giordano. It was very interesting, but unfortunately we are late, so we have no time for questions this time. But thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.
Have a nice evening, and see you next time.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you very much again. So now it's a tremendous pleasure for me to present the next presenter, Dr. Mariangela Ciccaresa, who is at home here. She's the clinical networks manager for the ARES, the Strategic Regional Agency for Health and Social Care in Bari. And her role is, among other things, strategic for drafting, evaluating, and auditing on the proper application of diagnostic, therapeutic, and care pathways for the regional oncology network. As you already, many of you know, she's a brilliant oncology with a highly valued expertise in breast cancer. I can continue, I can go on and on. She has actively contributed to many relevant clinical trials in her career in the field of oncology. And as we will see, she is a gifted communicator on top of all of that. And also, yes, she is a friend, right? You can confirm, okay. So now, sometimes, okay, it's Friday, it's late, but we can find the presentation.
Before tomorrow morning, please.
Scusa, se facciamo per 20 settembre. Sì, fuori dal comunque dello castello. Allora, aspetta, facciamo una cosa. Se tu lo fai visualizza per elenco. Vedi? Aspetta, scusa. Io sviluppo. Eccola. Se fai, aspetta. Questa? No. Sì, sì, ok. Solo che adesso l'ho aperta. We should be ready.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'll try to complete my presentation no more than 10 minutes. Okay? We are ready. Thanks to Elisabeth and all the organizers and my friends for this, for inviting me to discuss such a complex topic. Thank you very much, Elisabeth. Il mouse, vado, così, semplicemente.
The gag was prepared.
Okay. Just some key questions before to go to the topic. Health disparities in Italy and the south of Italy, I want to underline this point in particular, and how many data we have about these topics. You can see some slides. I'll try to jump the slides that you can see, and then the position of scientific society and national documents. At last, but not least, call to actions from Apulia region. Health inequalities in Italy are represented here. This is an update of 2019 in which is described the essential levels of care named LEA. The essential level of assistance care grid shows how regional performance in three areas of the healthcare sector: prevention, community, health services, and hospital assistance. You can see Apulia region that is a mild performer, a good performer because it is over 60 points. But you can see the worst performers are concentrated in the south, but not Apulia region. The same can be stated for Bolzano in the northeast, for example, of Italy. The LEA assessment depicts a country marching at 4 speeds. This slide shows that we have greater variance at regional level. The result reflects 6 regions as non-compliant in at least one of the 3 macro areas: prevention, community, and hospital, and are distributed in the north as in the south. This is the last update of this year of LEA grid. Apulia is 7 points so it's good performer because it's blue, and blue indicated the performance of Lea grid. It's a 7 points, but not so performing as Veneto, for example. This overview is useful to underline that health inequalities in Italy weigh on the entire regional population, regardless of gender, and obviously more on vulnerable subjects or categories. But I prefer this type of graphics because this is a framework elaborated by OECD that indicated that to concur to propose 3 index of health system performance: quality index, accessibility index, and patient-centeredness index. This is different from the Lea grid, and I think that it's more closer to the health that we concur to produce. There are regions, particularly in southern Italy, which recorded lower levels of performance with high levels of expenditure. You can see that Apulia region is very lower in terms of accessibility. Accessibility, as said in literature, is an important facilitator of people overall health. And you can see that Apulia region has a lower performance for quality and a lower performance for patient-centeredness, okay? But with the Lea grid, over 60 points. And this is the cost. This is, in Apulia region, we have high cost of assistance. So there are regions, at the conclusion of this paper, particularly in the southern Italy, which record lower levels of performance and high levels of expenditure. Specifically, Apulia region has a bad performance in the index of patient-centeredness, the patient at the center of the health system. But what about accessibility in this subpopulation, transgender people? This is a paper, far from 2017, that shows that accessibility is a problem as in overall population, also in transgender population. You can see that here is describes some barriers, and this paper identifies knowledge, the circulation of knowledge, as a way to overcome the gap. Yesterday I want to check how many papers are published about this topic, and I find many papers published. So this topic is becoming very important under the great umbrella of disequalities. I'll jump some slides that you. Okay. But I want to underline this point. Gender identity is different, very different from sexual orientation. I think that it's not so easy for all the operators to divide this point. Because sexual orientation is how a person identifies their physical, romantic, and emotional attraction to others. Transgender people can be of any sexual orientation, but our interest is to describe how many patients transgender we have, not their sexual orientation. This is a review, very important, in 2014, because one of the first review that shows all the states. And here it is very important because you can see that some states doesn't have any data about the transgender population. Italy has some data, but despite substantial gaps in empirical research, there are sufficient actionable data surrounding health risk and resilience for transgender people that need interventions. But what is the first step for intervention? I think that empowerment and engagement of the patient is the first step, because I'll try to explain that we must work with, not work on, transgender population. This is the paper that you have seen before, position paper during Assisi recommendation during 3 years of ethics that IOM on Gender Working Group produced. But this is a great paper for some points. First step, identification of different subgroups, and try to give some epidemiological data. Estimation in North European studies and Anglo-Saxon is 0.3, 0.5%. and in adults, and 2.7 of children and adolescents that identify themselves as transgender. 2.7 for children and adolescents is a consistent data that we can reflect, we must reflect about this data. But this is a second step, very important, is health disease most frequently identified in transgender and gender disease population, and accessibility to health services. One of the first doctor that these people met is general practitioners. So I propose to plan some expert meeting with general practitioner, because 82% of these patients meet at the first meet with the health system in the person of general practitioner. After public hospital, at the third point, private specialists, and then public specialists. So these are the panorama in which we are plan something for education or to circulate knowledge. Third step, identification of discrimination items by healthcare providers. This is the opinion of transgender population on healthcare providers. The comfort and accessibility of the hospital that transgender population find. I want to underline one point. Treating me with less courtesy, respect than other people, ignoring or not taking into account specific needs, blaming me for the medical problem, inappropriate curiosity, maybe this due to sexual orientation that became the goal, and not gender diversity that is the goal. So I think that it is necessary to plan circulation of knowledge about this topic. In this type of general practitioners, hospital, public hospital, and specialists at first. Okay, I jump this one. I jump another one. I try to jump. Okay, actions plan. The assisted recommendation is very important because it describes the 10 actions to plan in order to increase the assistance in transgender and gender diverse population. I want to underline some of these actions. One of these, innovation and new cancer drugs opportunity. Do not exclude HIV patients under treatment and with a clinical acceptable CD4 lymphocyte count to participate to clinical trials, because all the people had a new cancer drug opportunity at the same level. No one left behind. Okay? Create safe and welcoming environments for transgender and gender diverse cancer patients. I want to underline that it is a right for all people, independently by sex, gender identity, and not yet reached in every hospital. We don't have a welcoming environments in many hospitals, and this is true for all the people, not just for transgender population. So this is an accreditation, this is a criteria of accreditation for the hospital. Very important, improve cancer screening guidelines refer to transgender and gender diverse individuals. Important. Refer patients for oncological screening programs based on their anatomy and actual risk factors, not based their anatomy, not based on sex assigned at birth. Organize a didactic event as today. This is a best practice to repeat. Okay? Communication, multidisciplinarity, collaboration with social assistant about skilled about matter, and psychologists skilled about matter, not just basic psychology, but skilled. Engagement and empowerment of LGBT community, work with, not on. And then, last but not least, I try to jump. Okay. Okay. National Cancer Plan. I try to find some transgender word in National Cancer Plan. I find the word gender used 6 times in terms of male, female, no innovative actions described, no mention to transgender and gender diverse population. So, in our National Cancer Plan, we don't have any planned actions for transgender and gender disease and gender diverse population. Just for male, female, in terms of equity. Male quote rosa, sostanzialmente. In Europe, European Cancer Coalition produced a position paper about inequalities in LGBT community, in line with my own position. No specifically action in European Cancer Plan, but we can consider this topic under the great umbrella of the fight against inequality. Actions in Apulia region. I want to imagine 3 actions. First action, political endorsement. I want to thank to Donato Metallo for he's brave to follow this law, because we have a regional law, implementation of the regional law 2024, that has an object very important, against any form of discrimination on sex, sexual orientation, gender diversity. And important, in this law there are several points. One for all. Encouragement for companies to adopt certification of compliance with the social responsibility standard. Prevention of bullying and cyberbullying linked to gender identity. Right to physical integrity for intersex people and people with variations in sexual characteristics since birth. Second action, in Apulia region, knowledge, sensibilization and information within the health community in line with IOM statements. An example, today's activity, thanks again Elisabetta, and all the organization for the opportunity. It could be useful to define a plan every 6 months, every year, what do you want, in order to verify changes about topics in the different area. Third action, from my point of view, are Puglia. Discuss the matter within the construction regional diagnostic therapeutic path, oncological and non-oncological area, PDTA. I want to discuss this matter as a boxes about gender in every regional diagnostic therapeutic path, oncological or not. Define a schedule beside anagraphical data out of privacy consent to identify the transgender and gender diversity and to have a more accurate estimate in our region about the numbers of the subgroups in order to have a more accurate epidemiology dimension. Engagement of the association LGBTQI in every initiative to hear their opinion and to realign our steps according to it. Define a critical mass with the social part of society to reduce inequalities and to let the law 2424 applicable. That's all for me. Thanks very much for the attention.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there are any questions, if we have time for questions from the audience. Graziana,
So
do
you are
have a question?
committed on this plan.
You have a lot
okay?
of, yes, a lot of work to do. Both have a lot of work to do.
Okay.
Because
You can start.
this is only the beginning. Yes.
Thank you, Mariangela.
That's a promise. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We have the time for the closing remarks, I think, the closing comments from Professor Tiziana Grassi and Professor Francesco Bagordo. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for having us.
Okay, before the end of this conference, I want to make a small point about what we have heard at the conference. The world, and with it humanity, is in a state of constant evolution. Consequently, in every age, science and medicine have had to adapt new challenges generated by changes in climate, environment, society, work, and lifestyles. One of the challenges of the new millennium is to ensure equal access to health services for all people. Currently, with the available technical means and the attained scientific knowledge, it is no longer feasible to have people who have difficulty accessing preventive services. In this regard, the conference highlighted a number of insights. First, the transgender population encounters difficulties in screening due to limitation in biographical information, which impedes the retrieval of individuals and their placement in an appropriate pathway based on their condition. In addition, there are problems in patient management, particularly with regard to communication between the physician and the patient. Then, the transgender population experiences psychosocial stress due to the perceived lack of protection of their health. The need for the widespread implementation of the HPV vaccination was also highlighted. In light of these findings, the implementation of efficacious prevention strategies is important.
Well, and now very quickly, we are coming to the end of this international conference on cancer. To shed light on an emerging topic that is still relatively little known, but not for this it can be under-evaluated in the context of the prevention of chronic degenerative diseases. As Professor Tiziana Grassi said before, the conference gave us a lot to think about. For these reasons, we would like to express our gratitude to all the speakers for having agreed to participate in this conference, and most importantly, for their valuable contribution, which we hope will serve as a foundation for further exploration of this topic, and above all, for the development of effective prevention strategies. Furthermore, we would like to acknowledge the very important contribution of Elisabetta De Matteis in the scientific organization of the conference, the moderators, and the SEPAS agency responsible for the organizing the event. Finally, we extend our appreciation to all of you who attended this conference. Thank you for your attention.